The great hall of Terminus Prime had never seen such fear. 12 different species sat together in the curved rows of the Galactic Council chamber. Their faces showed terror. Their hands shook. Their voices carried the weight of doom. Ambassador Eth stood at the center platform. He was tall and thin, with pale blue skin that seemed to glow under the chamber lights. His people, had led the council for 3,000 years. They were known for their calm wisdom, but today, even Eth could not hide his fear. "The reports are confirmed," he said. His voice echoed through the silent hall. "The void swarm has awakened." A wave of gasps moved through the chamber. Some delegates covered their faces. Others whispered prayers to gods they had not thought about in centuries. The void swarm was supposed to be a myth, a story told to frighten children. Ancient texts spoke of a darkness that consumed worlds, that turned living planets into dead rocks. Most species believed these were just legends, warnings from ancestors who wanted to keep their children humble. They were wrong. 3 civilizations have fallen, Eth continued. The burning suns of Sector 9. Their worlds are gone, not conquered, not damaged, gone. Nothing remains but empty space and silence. Fleet Commander rose from his seat. He was a species known for their military strength. His body was covered in thick gray scales, and his eyes burned with the fire of a warrior. They had the largest fleet in the galaxy. They feared nothing. Until now. "I led 12 combined fleets against the swarm," said. His voice was heavy with shame. 4,000 ships, the best weapons from every species. We engaged the enemy at the edge of Sector 7. He paused. The memory seemed to cause him physical pain. "The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, I had 43 ships left. The swarm did not slow down. It did not even seem to notice us." The chamber erupted in panic. Delegates shouted over each other. Some demanded evacuation. Others called for surrender. A few simply sat in stunned silence, unable to process what they were hearing. Eth raised his hand for quiet. "We have sent distress signals to every known species in the galaxy, every world, every colony, every ship. We are asking for help from anyone who can provide it." "Even the humans?" someone asked from the back rows. There was disbelief in the voice, almost mockery. Earth was a small world in a forgotten corner of the galaxy. Humans had only achieved space travel a few decades ago. They were considered primitive, backwards, not worth the Council's attention. Most species had never even met a human. "Yes," Eth said, "even the humans. We cannot afford pride at this moment. We need every ship, every weapon, every soldier we can find." The response came 3 days later. Earth sent 1 ship. When the news reached the Council, the reaction was not fear or disappointment. It was anger, pure, burning anger. 1 ship slammed his fist against the table. "We lost 4,000 ships and the humans send 1. This is an insult. This is mockery. Do they think this is a game?" "Perhaps they do not understand the situation," another delegate suggested. "They are primitive. They have never faced a threat like this." "Then they are fools," growled. "And their foolishness will cost them their world when the swarm reaches their sector." The ship arrived at Terminus Prime the next morning. It was called the Horizon, and it was unlike anything the Council had ever seen. The vessel was not elegant like cruisers. It was not massive like warships. It was angular and dark, covered in strange armor that seemed to absorb light. Weapons bristled from every surface. Even at rest, the ship looked dangerous. It looked hungry. Captain Park Ho requested an audience with the Council. His request was granted, though most delegates expected to reject whatever he had to say. Park walked into the great hall alone. He was average height for a human, with short black hair and calm dark eyes. He wore a simple gray uniform with no medals or decorations. He looked like nothing special. But there was something in the way he moved, something in the way he looked at the assembled leaders of the galaxy. He was not nervous. He was not impressed. He studied them the way a hunter studies prey. "Captain Park," Eth said, his tone was cold. "Earth has answered our call for help by sending a single vessel. The Council finds this response inadequate." Park nodded slowly. "I understand your disappointment, Ambassador." "Disappointment," stepped forward. "We face extinction. The greatest fleets in history have fallen, and your species sends one ship with one captain. This is not disappointment, this is betrayal." Park did not react to the insult. He simply looked at with those calm eyes. "May I ask you a question, Fleet Commander?" Snorted asked. "How many of your ships survived the battle with the swarm?" 43 admitted, out of 4,000. "And how many swarm organisms did your fleet destroy?" Hesitated, the question seemed to confuse him. We do not know, millions perhaps, but more kept coming, always more." Park nodded again. "That is because you fought them the wrong way. You used superior numbers and firepower, but the swarm does not care about numbers. It does not fear death. It is a single organism spread across billions of bodies. Killing parts of it means nothing." "And you think you know a better way?" Eth asked. There was skepticism in his voice, but also a tiny spark of hope. "Yes," Park said simply. "That is why Earth sent the Horizon. One ship is all we need." Arrogance spat. "Human arrogance. You know nothing about war on this scale." Park turned to face the fleet commander directly. For the first time, something flickered in his calm expression. It might have been amusement. It might have been pity. "Fleet Commander, my species has been at war with itself since we first learned to hold weapons. We have fought for land, for resources, for ideas, for pride. We have killed billions of our own kind. We have built weapons that can burn worlds to ash. We have stared into the darkness of our own souls and found ways to survive." He paused, letting his words sink in. "The void swarm is dangerous, but it is not the first enemy that has threatened to destroy everything we love, and it will not be the last. Earth sent one ship because one ship is enough. The Horizon was built for exactly this kind of fight." Eth leaned forward. "What kind of ship is it, Captain?" Park smiled. It was a small smile, but there was something cold in it, something ancient. "The kind that wins." The council chamber fell silent. For the first time since the crisis began, no one knew what to say. They had expected to dismiss the human captain. They had expected to send him away with polite words and empty thanks. Instead, they found themselves wondering if this strange, quiet man from a forgotten world might actually have a plan. "Very well," Eth said finally. "Tell us about your ship, Captain Park. Tell us how you plan to save the galaxy." Park reached into his uniform pocket and pulled out a small device. He pressed a button, and a holographic image appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed the horizon in perfect detail, rotating slowly. "This is the beginning," Park said. "Pay attention. The survival of your species depends on what I am about to tell you." And so, in the heart of the Galactic Council, a human began to teach the galaxy how to fight. The holographic image of the horizon floated in the center of the council chamber. Every delegate leaned forward, studying the strange human vessel. It looked like nothing they had ever seen before. Captain Park Ho walked around the image, pointing to different sections of the ship. His voice was calm and clear, like a teacher explaining something to students. "The Horizon is not a battleship in the traditional sense," he began. "It is a weapon. A single, focused weapon designed for one purpose." "And what purpose is that?" Fleet Commander asked. His tone was still hostile, but curiosity had begun to replace his anger. "To kill things that should not be able to die." Park pressed another button on his device. The hologram changed, showing a mass of writhing darkness. Billions of small organisms moving together like a living cloud. The void swarm. For the past 15 years, Earth has been watching the swarm. Our long-range observation stations detected its movement before anyone else knew it had awakened. We have studied it. We have learned its secrets." Ambassador Eth frowned. "How is that possible? Earth's technology is far behind ours. Your observation capabilities should be limited." "Our technology is different," Park said. "Not better or worse. Different. Humans do not build things the same way other species do. We do not look for elegance or efficiency. We look for results." He zoomed the hologram closer, showing individual swarm organisms. They were ugly things, twisted combinations of biological and mechanical parts. Each one was about the size of a human fist. "The swarm is not a natural creature," Park explained. "It was built, created by a species that died millions of years ago. They designed it as a weapon to destroy their enemies, but they made a mistake." "What mistake?" a delegate asked. "They made it too good. The swarm turned on its creators and consumed them. Then it went dormant, drifting through space until something woke it up again." The chamber was silent. The idea that the swarm was artificial, not natural, changed everything. It meant the swarm was not acting on instinct. It was following a program, a set of instructions. "If it was built," said slowly, "then it can be destroyed. Everything built has a weakness." "Exactly," Park smiled, "and we found it." He changed the hologram again. This time it showed a pattern of waves, flowing through the swarm like ripples in water. "The swarm operates on a high frequency. Every organism is connected to every other organism. They share information, coordinate attacks, and adapt to threats in real time. This is why your fleets failed, Commander. You killed millions of organisms, but the swarm learned from each death. It adjusted. It evolved." "How do we stop something that learns?" Eth asked. "You cut the connection." Park pointed to the waves on the hologram. "The high frequency is the swarm's greatest strength, but also its greatest weakness. If we can disrupt that frequency, the organisms lose their coordination. They become confused. They turn on each other or simply shut down." "And the Horizon can do this?" asked. For the first time there was hope in his voice. "Yes, the Horizon carries a frequency disruptor, the most powerful one ever built. When activated, it will send a pulse across the entire swarm, severing every connection at once." A murmur ran through the chamber. Delegates whispered to each other, discussing what they had heard. Some looked relieved, others looked suspicious. "If this is true," one delegate said, "why did Earth not share this information sooner? Why wait until millions have died?" Park's expression darkened. "Because no one asked us. Because your council classified us as primitive. Because you did not think we had anything to offer." The accusation hung in the air. Many delegates looked away in shame. They knew it was true. "We are asking now," Eth said quietly. "We are listening now." Park nodded, accepting the apology without needing words. "There is a problem. The disruptor requires enormous power, more power than the Horizon can generate on its own, and it must be activated at close range, very close range." "How close?" asked. "Inside the swarm itself." The hope that had begun to build in the chamber collapsed. Flying into the swarm was suicide. No ship had ever survived contact with that living darkness. "That is impossible," said. "My fleets were destroyed from a distance. Getting inside the swarm would mean certain death." "Not certain," Park replied, "just very likely." At that moment, the chamber doors opened. 3 more humans walked in, wearing the same simple gray uniforms as their captain. Park gestured for them to join him. "This is Chief Engineer Wu. She designed the Horizon systems." Wu was a young woman with sharp eyes and oil-stained hands. She did not look like a genius, but the way she studied the hologram suggested a mind that saw things others could not. "This is Dr. Bai, our science officer. She has studied the swarm more than anyone alive." Bai was older, with kind eyes and gray hair tied back in a practical bun. She carried a data tablet that she consulted constantly, as if the answers to the universe were hidden in its screen. And this is Navigator Sung. He will fly us through the swarm. Sung was tall and quiet, with the calm expression of someone who had faced death many times and no longer feared it. He simply nodded to the council, not wasting words on ceremony. "These are the people who will save your galaxy," Park said. "Along with the rest of our crew, 47 humans aboard one ship." 47 shook his head, against billions of swarm organisms. "Numbers do not matter," Park said. "Only determination matters, only will." Wu stepped forward, taking over the presentation. "The disruptor is ready. The problem is power. We need a source of energy that exceeds anything our reactors can produce. I am working on solutions, but we may need help from your scientists." "What kind of energy source?" Eth asked. "Something massive, something explosive, perhaps a star." The delegates stared at her as if she had gone insane. Using a star as a power source was beyond anything they had ever considered. "Is such a thing possible?" Eth asked. "With human engineering," Wu said, "anything is possible, we just need time." Bai consulted her tablet. "Unfortunately, time is something we do not have. The swarm has changed course. It is no longer moving toward the outer colonies." "Where is it heading?" demanded. Bai looked up, her kind eyes filled with sadness. "Here, Terminus Prime. It will arrive in 3 days." Panic erupted in the chamber. Delegates shouted and screamed. Some ran for the doors, desperate to escape. Others called for emergency evacuations. The careful order of the Galactic Council shattered like glass. Park watched the chaos without expression. He had seen panic before. He knew it would pass. When the noise began to die down, he spoke again. His voice cut through the remaining chatter like a blade. 3 days is enough." Every eye turned to him. "Enough for what?" Eth asked. "Enough to prepare, enough to gather your remaining ships, enough to find a way to power the disruptor." Park looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of every delegate. "The swarm is coming. You can run or you can fight. Earth has made its choice. We will fight. The only question is whether you will stand with us." Fleet Commander stepped forward. His scales seemed darker now, his eyes burning with renewed fire. "The do not run, we will fight." One by one, other delegates stood. The silent ones of Sector 4. Species that had been enemies for centuries now stood together, united by fear and hope. "Then we have 3 days," Park said. "Let us not waste them." As the council began to organize, to plan, to hope, Sung leaned close to his captain and spoke quietly. "Can we really do this?" Park did not answer right away. He watched the aliens around him, these frightened beings who had never truly understood what war meant. "We will find out," he said finally, "one way or another." The combined fleet gathered in the shadow of Terminus Prime. 40 ships from 12 different species, all that remained of the galaxy's military might. They hung in space like scattered leaves, small and fragile against the endless darkness. Captain Park Ho stood on the bridge of the horizon, studying the tactical display. Lieutenant Hana worked beside him, moving ship markers across the holographic map. "They have contributed 8 cruisers," Hana reported. "They have 14 warships. The rest are a mix of destroyers and support vessels from the smaller species." 40 ships, Park said quietly, "against billions. We have faced worse odds." Park looked at his tactical officer. Hana was young, barely 30 years old, but she had the eyes of a veteran. She had served on the border colonies during the Outer Rim conflicts. She had seen friends die. She had learned to fight. "Have we?" he asked. Hana did not answer. They both knew the truth. Nothing in human history compared to what they were about to face. The fleet moved into formation. Park had taken command of the operation despite protests from the alien commanders. His authority came not from rank or tradition, but from simple logic. Only the horizon had a chance of stopping the swarm. Everyone else was there to protect it. Formation Delta, Park ordered through the fleet-wide channel. All ships maintain position. We will intercept the swarm's advance force at the edge of Sector 7. Fleet Commander's voice came through the communication system. Captain, my scouts report swarm outriders approaching. They will reach us within 4 hours. Outriders. Smaller groups that travel ahead of the main body. They test defenses and report back to the hive. How many? Thousands, perhaps tens of thousands. Hana updated the tactical display. Red dots appeared at the edge of the map, moving slowly toward the fleet's position. So many dots that they blurred together into a solid mass. That is not a scouting force, she said. That is an army. It is a test, Park replied. The swarm wants to see what we can do before it commits its full strength. The hours passed slowly. Crew members checked their stations, ran final diagnostics, said quiet prayers to gods they were not sure existed. Chief Engineer Wu worked frantically on the frequency disruptor, trying to solve the power problem that threatened to make their entire mission worthless. Navigator Sung sat at his console, his hands steady on the controls. He had plotted 17 different escape routes, though he knew they would probably not need them. If the horizon fell, there would be nowhere to escape to. Dr. Bai studied the swarm data on her tablet, looking for any new information that might help. Her screens showed the approaching enemy in terrifying detail. Each organism was a perfect killing machine, designed to consume and destroy. Captain, she said, I have been analyzing the swarm's behavior patterns. It is adapting faster than our models predicted. Each engagement teaches it something new. What has it learned? It knows we are different. It has identified the horizon as the primary threat. The outriders are not just testing our defenses. They are specifically targeting us. Park nodded grimly. Then we will have to be careful. Careful is not really our specialty, Hana said. Despite the tension, Park smiled slightly. No, it is not. The outriders arrived like a wave of darkness. Thousands of swarm organisms poured through space, their twisted bodies glowing with sickly green light. They moved with terrible coordination, flowing around obstacles and reforming their patterns instantly. All ships engage, Park commanded. The battle began. Plasma fire lit up the void. Missiles streaked toward the enemy. Energy weapons carved burning lines through the swarm's ranks. Thousands of organisms died in the first seconds of combat. But more kept coming, always more. The Allied ships fought bravely. Cruisers swept through the swarm with elegant precision. Warships charged directly into the enemy, their heavy armor absorbing damage that would have destroyed lesser vessels. Smaller ships darted between the larger ones, picking off stragglers and protecting damaged allies. It was not enough. The swarm adapted. It learned to avoid the strongest weapons. It learned to target the weakest points in the formation. Within an hour, 6 Allied ships had been consumed, their crews screaming as the organisms tore through hull and flesh alike. On the horizon, Sung performed impossible maneuvers. He spun the ship through gaps that should have been too small, accelerated when physics said he should slow down, and kept the vessel moving in patterns that the swarm could not predict. How is he doing that? Hana asked, watching the navigator work. He is not thinking, Park said. He is reacting pure instinct. The ship shook as organisms slammed against the hull. Warning lights flashed across every console. Crew members were thrown from their stations, bleeding and bruised but refusing to stop working. His voice came through the communication system, strained with exhaustion. Captain Park, we cannot hold much longer. The outriders are pushing through our lines. Hold position, Park ordered. We need more time. Time for what? Park did not answer. He was watching Wu work on the disruptor controls, her fingers flying across panels and keyboards. Sweat dripped down her face. Her lips moved in silent calculations. "Wu," he said calmly, "talk to me." "The disruptor is ready," she replied without looking up. "But we still cannot generate enough power. If we fire it now, it will only affect a small portion of the swarm." "How small?" "Maybe 1%. Enough to confuse them temporarily, but not enough to break the hive connection." Bai looked up from her tablet. "Captain, I may have found something. There is a dying star in the nearby system, approximately 2 light hours away. It is in the final stages of collapse." "A supernova?" "Within the next 48 hours, yes. The energy released would be more than enough to power the disruptor at maximum capacity." Hana shook her head. "We would have to fly into the star to capture that energy. The heat alone would destroy us." "Maybe not," Wu said slowly. She had stopped working and was staring at the ceiling, thinking. "If we reinforce the hull with emergency shielding and redirect all power to thermal protection, we might survive long enough to capture the energy pulse." "How long is long enough?" Park asked. 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes if we are lucky." "And if we are not lucky?" Wu finally looked at her captain. Her eyes were tired but determined. "Then we die, but at least we die trying." Park considered the options. They were all terrible. Fight the swarm with inadequate weapons and lose slowly. Run and let the galaxy burn. Or fly into a dying star and hope for a miracle. He made his decision. Sung set course for the dying star, maximum speed. "Yes, Captain." Park opened the fleet-wide channel. "All ships, this is Captain Park. We have a plan to destroy the swarm, but it requires us to reach the star in Sector 9 before it explodes. We need you to hold the enemy here while we move into position." Responded immediately. "We will hold them, Captain, whatever it takes." "You understand what that means?" A pause, then's voice heavy with the weight of sacrifice. "Yes, we understand. Go, save what you can." The horizon pulled away from the battle, accelerating toward the distant star. Behind them, the Allied fleet closed ranks, forming a wall between the swarm and their escaping hope. Park watched on the rear sensors as swarm organisms crashed against the defensive line. Ships exploded. Crews died. Friends he had made in the past 3 days were consumed by the darkness. "They are dying for us," Hana said softly. "They are dying for everyone," Park replied. "We need to make sure their sacrifice means something." The horizon raced toward the dying star, carrying the last hope of the galaxy in its battered hull. Behind them, the battle raged on. The dying star filled a massive ball of fire that pulsed with ancient light. It had burned for billions of years, but now its time was ending. Cracks of darkness spread across its surface. Waves of energy rippled outward. Within hours, it would collapse and explode with enough force to destroy everything nearby. Captain Park Ho stared at the star without blinking. His ship would fly into that fire. His crew would either emerge victorious or die trying. "Report," he said calmly. Lieutenant Hana checked her console. "The main swarm body has changed course. It is following us. Estimated arrival time is 40 minutes. The fleet. 22 ships remaining. They are falling back to our position to provide cover." 22 ships. Less than half of what they started with. Good soldiers from 12 different species had died to buy the horizon time. Park looked around his bridge. His crew was exhausted. They had been fighting and working for days without rest. Their uniforms were stained with sweat and sometimes blood. Their eyes were red from staring at screens. But none of them showed fear. None of them asked to stop. They were human, and humans did not give up. Chief Engineer Wu crawled out from under a console, her face smeared with grease. "The modifications are complete. The hull should survive the corona for approximately 100 seconds. After that, we start melting." 100 seconds, Park repeated. "That is enough." "If everything goes perfectly." Then we will make sure everything goes perfectly. Navigator Sung ran calculations on his console. I have plotted our approach vector. We need to enter the star's atmosphere at exactly the right moment to catch the supernova energy wave. Too early and we burn. Too late and the pulse passes us by. Can you do it? Sung looked at his captain with steady eyes. I have never failed you before. There is always a first time. Not today. Dr. Bai approached with her tablet. Captain, I have been monitoring the swarm. It knows what we are planning. It is sending its fastest organisms ahead to intercept us. How many? Millions. They will reach us before the star explodes. Park nodded slowly. This was expected. The swarm was intelligent in its own alien way. It would not let them complete their mission without a fight. Then we fight. The communication system crackled. Fleet Commander's voice came through, tired but determined. Captain Park, my remaining ships are in position. We will hold the swarm as long as we can. Thank you, Commander. Your people are brave. We are not brave, we are desperate. There is a difference. A pause. Captain, I owe you an apology. When you arrived, I thought you were arrogant. I thought humans were foolish to send one ship against such odds. I was wrong. You were not wrong, Park said. We are arrogant, we are foolish. But sometimes those things are what you need. Laughed. It was a strange sound from a perhaps. Whatever happens today, the galaxy will remember what humans did. We will remember. Make sure there is someone left to remember. The connection ended. Park turned to face his crew. In a few minutes, we will fly into a dying star while millions of enemies try to kill us. The chances of survival are small. I will not lie to you about that. He paused, looking at each face. But I have served with you for years. I know what you can do. I know that when everything seems impossible, you find a way. That is what makes us human. Wu smiled. That and our terrible taste in food. A few tired laughs rippled through the bridge. Even in the face of death, humans found reasons to smile. Battle stations, Park ordered. Let us finish this. The swarm arrived like a storm. Millions of organisms poured through space, their green glow creating a sickly light that spread across the darkness. They moved with perfect coordination, flowing around the defending ships and heading straight for the horizon. The Allied fleet opened fire. Plasma bolts carved burning paths through the swarm's ranks. Missiles exploded in clusters, destroying hundreds of organisms at a time. The defenders fought with desperate courage, knowing they were buying time with their lives. The horizon pushed forward, driving toward the dying star. Sung's hands danced across his controls, steering through gaps in the enemy formation that appeared and disappeared in seconds. Swarm organisms on the hull, Hana reported. They are trying to cut through. Wu, activate the emergency defenses. Activating now. Electric pulses ran across the horizon's surface, throwing the organisms off into space. But more came, always more. An Allied ship exploded on the left flank, then another on the right. The defensive line was collapsing, but they did not retreat. They kept fighting, giving the horizon every possible second. We are entering the star's outer atmosphere, Sung announced. Temperature rising. The showed flames. Massive walls of fire reached up from the star's surface like hungry hands. The heat was incredible. Even with the modified shields, the temperature inside the ship began to rise. Hull temperature at 300 degrees, Wu reported. 400, 500. How long until the supernova? Park asked. Bai checked her readings. 7 minutes. We need to reach the optimal position. Sung, get us there. Working on it. The ship shook as solar flares struck the shields. Warning alarms screamed from every direction. Crew members clutched their stations, trying to stay upright as the horizon bucked and twisted. Outside, the remaining Allied ships were being overwhelmed. Swarm organisms covered them like living blankets, tearing through armor and consuming everything inside. One by one, the defenders fell silent. "Fleet Commander's ship has been destroyed," Hana reported quietly. "No survivors." Park said nothing. There was nothing to say, had known what would happen. He had chosen to fight anyway. "Hull temperature at 800 degrees, Wu said. 900, we are reaching critical levels." "How much farther?" 2 minutes to optimal position. The star below them was dying. Cracks of darkness spread across its surface, growing wider with each second. The energy building inside was enormous, waiting to be released. "Captain," Bai said urgently, "the supernova is happening faster than predicted. We have 90 seconds, not 7 minutes. Sung. I see it adjusting course." The navigator pushed the engines beyond their limits. The horizon screamed through the star's corona, its hull glowing red from the heat. Metal began to warp. Systems began to fail. 60 seconds to supernova, Bai counted. 50 seconds. "Disruptor status." "Ready," Wu confirmed, waiting for power input. 40 seconds. Park gripped his command chair. His knuckles were white. Around him, his crew held their positions despite the heat, despite the fear, despite everything. This was the moment. Everything they had done, everyone who had died, all of it came down to the next few seconds. 30 seconds. "Position achieved," Sung announced. "We are here." 20 seconds. The star cracked open. Light poured from the wounds in its surface, ancient energy finally breaking free after billions of years. 10 seconds. Wu, prepare to capture. Ready. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. The star exploded. Energy beyond imagination erupted outward. The horizon was caught in the wave, thrown like a leaf in a hurricane. Wu screamed commands at her console, capturing the power even as it threatened to destroy them. "Disruptor charging," she shouted. 50%, 70%, 90%. The ship was breaking apart. Fire filled the corridors. Crew members were thrown against walls, bones breaking, blood flowing, but still they fought. Still they worked. 100%. "Fire the disruptor," Park ordered. Wu pressed the activation button. A pulse of energy unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen erupted from the horizon. It spread outward at the speed of light, washing over the swarm, severing the connections between billions of organisms in an instant. The swarm screamed. It was a sound that existed beyond hearing, a vibration that shook space itself. The hive mind shattered. The coordination collapsed. Billions of organisms suddenly found themselves alone, disconnected, confused. They turned on each other. They went dormant. They died. And the horizon, burning and broken, was thrown clear of the supernova's heart by the very explosion that had given it power. Behind them, the star collapsed into nothing. Before them, the swarm fell silent. They had done it. They had won. The horizon drifted through space like a wounded animal. Half of its hull was gone, burned away by the supernova's fury. Smoke poured from dozens of breaches. Emergency lights flickered in the corridors. The ship was dying, but it was not dead yet. Captain Park Ho lay on the bridge floor, unable to move. His body was broken. Radiation sickness was already setting in, but his eyes were open and he could see the tactical display above him. The swarm was silent. Billions of organisms floated in space, motionless, disconnected from each other. Some had torn themselves apart in confusion. Others had simply stopped functioning. The hive mind that had threatened to consume the galaxy was gone. "Captain," Lieutenant Hana's voice came from somewhere nearby. "Captain, we did it." Park tried to respond, but his throat was too dry. He managed a weak nod. Hana crawled across the tilted floor, pulling herself toward her commander. Her arm was broken, hanging at a strange angle, but she ignored the pain. Medical teams are treating the injured. We lost 9 crew members. The rest will survive. 9 people. 9 humans who had flown into a star to save species they had never met. Park would remember their names. He would make sure everyone remembered their names. Navigator Sung sat slumped over his console, unconscious but breathing. His hands were still on the controls, as if he was ready to fly even in his sleep. He had done the impossible. He had steered them through fire and brought them out the other side. Chief Engineer Wu was already moving through the ship, coordinating repair efforts despite her own injuries. Her voice echoed through the communication system, giving orders, solving problems, keeping the horizon alive through sheer determination. Dr. Bai knelt beside the captain, scanning him with her medical device. Her face was worried. "You have severe radiation exposure. We need to get you to proper medical facilities." Later, Park whispered, "First, tell me about the swarm." Bai checked her tablet. The hive frequency has been completely disrupted. Without coordination, the individual organisms cannot function. They are dying by the billions. She paused. "It is over, Captain. We won." Park closed his eyes. For the first time in days, he allowed himself to feel relief. The journey back to Terminus Prime took 3 weeks. The horizon limped through space on backup engines, held together by emergency repairs and pure stubbornness. Other ships found them along the way, survivors from the Allied fleet who had hidden in asteroid fields or drifted with their power off. 9 ships had survived the battle, 9 out of 40. Their crews stared at the horizon with wonder, unable to believe that such a damaged vessel had accomplished what the greatest fleets in history could not. When they finally reached Terminus Prime, the station was waiting for them. Thousands of vessels surrounded the great structure, ships from every species in the galaxy. They had come to see the humans who had saved them all. Ambassador Eth met them at the docking bay. The leader looked older than before, worn down by worry and grief. But when he saw Captain Park being carried out on a stretcher, his face showed something else. Respect, gratitude, awe. "Captain Park," Eth said, bowing low, "the Galactic Council owes you a debt that can never be repaid. You and your crew have saved countless lives. You have saved civilizations. You have saved the future itself." Park tried to sit up, but his body refused. He settled for turning his head to face the ambassador. "We did what humans do, nothing more." "Nothing more," Eth shook his head. "You flew into a dying star. You faced certain death without hesitation. You sacrificed everything for species you had never met." He paused. "That is not nothing, Captain. That is everything." The following days passed in a blur of medical treatments and recovery. Park spent most of his time in the station's hospital, undergoing radiation therapy and regeneration treatments. His crew visited whenever they could, updating him on repairs to the horizon and sharing news from across the galaxy. The swarm was truly finished. Cleanup crews were collecting the dormant organisms and destroying them. Scientists were studying the remains, learning the secrets of the ancient weapon so that nothing like it could ever threaten the galaxy again. And everywhere, species that had never thought about humans before were now asking questions. Who were these people from the forgotten corner of the galaxy? How had they done what no one else could? What made them different? 3 weeks after the battle, Park was finally strong enough to attend a ceremony in the council chamber. He walked slowly, supported by Hana on one side and Sung on the other. Wu and Bai followed close behind. The chamber was packed. Representatives from every species in the galaxy filled the seats, their eyes fixed on the small group of humans entering the great hall. Eth stood at the center platform, waiting. When Park reached him, the ambassador smiled warmly. "Captain Park Ho of Earth, on behalf of the Galactic Council and every species we represent, I thank you. Your courage, your sacrifice, and your determination have saved us all." Park nodded but said nothing. Words seemed inadequate for the moment. The Council has decided to offer Earth full membership in the galactic community, a permanent seat on this very council, equal standing with every other species. Eth paused. Do you accept this honor on behalf of your world? Park looked at his crew. Hana smiled encouragingly. Sung nodded once. Wu was crying quietly. Bai simply watched, her tablet forgotten for once. I accept, Park said, on behalf of Earth and all its people. The chamber erupted in applause. Delegates stood, pounding their hands together or making whatever sounds their species used to express approval. The noise was overwhelming, but also beautiful. When the celebration finally calmed down, Eth approached Park privately. His expression was curious, searching. Captain, may I ask you something? Of course. How do you do it? How do humans find the courage to face impossible odds, to fly into stars, to sacrifice themselves for strangers? The ambassador shook his head. I have lived for centuries and studied hundreds of species. I have never encountered anything like your people. Park considered the question carefully. He had thought about this many times over the years, trying to understand what made humanity unique. We are not braver than other species, he said finally. We are not stronger or smarter. We feel fear just like everyone else. We want to live just like everyone else. Then what is your secret? Park looked out through the great windows of the chamber, at the stars that stretched endlessly into the darkness. Humans are stubborn, he said simply. When the universe tells us something is impossible, we do not believe it. When death comes for us, we fight back. When hope dies, we create more hope. He turned back to the ambassador. We are not special, ambassador. We are just too stubborn to quit. Eth stared at him for a long moment. Then he laughed. It was a genuine sound, full of wonder and appreciation. Stubborn, he repeated. Perhaps that is the greatest superpower of all. Later that night, Park stood on the observation deck of Terminus Prime, watching the stars. Hana found him there, standing in the darkness. The horizon will be repaired within a month, she reported. Fleet Command wants to know if you will take her out again. Of course. Even after everything that happened. Park turned to face his lieutenant. There will always be another threat, another challenge, another impossible mission that someone has to complete. He smiled slightly. And when that happens, Earth will send another ship, one ship, because that is all we ever need. Hana nodded slowly. What do you think we will face next? Park looked back at the stars. Somewhere out there, billions of worlds were sleeping peacefully because of what the horizon had done. Children were being born, lovers were meeting, life was continuing. I do not know, he admitted, but whatever it is, we will be ready. How can you be so sure? Park's smile widened. Because we are human, and humans always find a way. They stood together in silence, watching the universe spread out before them. The galaxy had faced destruction, and Earth's battleship had arrived. And now, among the countless stars of creation, humanity had found its place.